Word dies come in all shapes, sizes and styles. Today I'm going to be sharing some of my favourites with you, and I have 8 ideas to help you use your word dies. I'm going to start with one of my favourite techniques, which is on repeat. Now I want to make a masculine birthday card, so I've chosen the happy birthday sentiment. This actually has a shadow die. I'm just going to use the actual sentiment, and I've chosen some fun colours, and you're going to see that these colours are going to flow throughout all of today's card designs. And I have started by die cutting a multitude of these sentiments in a variation of the colours. Typically I would kind of make these sentiments join together and create minimal gaps on the card front, and you can actually die cut multiple sentiments. Just test out what you've got and nestle them into each other and see what's going to look good on your card front. But today I wanted to take it a step further. I actually want to create a patterned sentiment background, almost like waves on the sea, and I'm going to make it almost like a tone on tone effect. So each layer is going to be a tone on tone. If you don't have word die cuts, don't worry, because a lot of these techniques that I'm sharing with you today can also be used with stamped sentiments. You could actually stamp sentiments tone on tone to create a very similar look. So I've used some landscape die shapes. You can use whatever you want. You can actually just draw a line with a pencil. You don't have to nestle the cardstock into each other. You can overlap it. It makes it much easier to do. So I'm turning to liquid glue more and more these days, and for fine die cuts such as sentiments, it's perfect, especially if you've got a fine tip on the end of the glue. You may have also noticed that I over cut my pieces, and what I mean by that is I like to leave pieces of the die cuts and of the sentiments hanging over the edge, because I can simply flip the whole image over and cut them away down the track. I did measure my landscape dies, and it was easy to fix. I just used a pencil line and cut it away with a pair of scissors. And don't worry, the piece of cardstock that I made the mishap on, I'm going to use it on the next card. It's not going to get wasted, I promise. I will usually work on a piece of A2 cardstock, like an 80-pound cardstock. That way I can attach it to the front of an A2 side fold card down the track. If I make any mistakes, it means I'm only wasting a piece of cardstock, which is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. I have a few gaps here on my sentiments, and that's because I wanted to do this tone on tone look on this card, and I figured I can use my embellishments and my images when I create my card design to fill those gaps. But I didn't judge it very well. I thought my fish faced the other way. So I ended up not putting very much of my fishing rod into the image, but it kind of still works out. So seriously, I used the tiniest piece of the fishing line. So the possibilities for creating a repeat pattern with your die cut word sentiments are endless. It doesn't have to be in a pattern like I've done it here on the waves. It doesn't have to be tone on tone. It doesn't have to be on an angle. You can do them horizontally. Large sentiments, small sentiments. You can create such fun repeat designs. You could even do it in a rainbow. On to my next technique, and we're going to be doing a focal point. This is the Mega Hello die, and true to its name, it is mega, it's huge. So you can simply cut it out of some cardstock. I thought I'd make my own ombre cardstock to cut it out of, just to step it up a little bit. You can also use design paper if you like. but what I thought I'd do was make mine a little bit more bespoke today. So when I'd finished my blending, I decided to come in and do a little bit of tone on tone stamping. I have a template that I've cut from some white cardstock. This is just going to guide me as to where I need to do my stamping. I've got a set of stamps here with just some lined patterns and lines, and I'm working from sort of the darkest to the lightest, and I'm only adding these patterns to the right hand side of the Hello die cut. You could do whatever you want. I was actually initially thinking about doing like a black on white modern bold style of stamping, or you could even just do it with design paper if you don't feel that you have the confidence to do something like that, or you don't have the stamps to create the patterns. And once I've finished all my stamping, I could just simply die cut the word hello, and I'm really happy with the result. These teal blue greens would have to be one of my favorite colors to create with in cards. If you have intricate die cuts such as this and you want to give them a little bit of stability, my best recommendation is to layer them up. So just use some cheap or some scrap cardstock and cut multiples of the word. Just be aware that if you choose coloured cardstock, it is going to be seen. So if that's the look you want, go for it. Otherwise, what I tend to do is just have some cheaper white cardstock that I will cut multiples of, and then I can layer it up with some liquid glue. I want to make this die cut my focal point because it's huge, but why not make it a bit of fun? So I've chosen a little girl image, and I thought she'd look really fun if she was sitting on top of the word hello. Now I'm going to cover the whole front of my card with some of this peacock cardstock. I've added some die cut clouds and the mishap die cut from the first card made it onto this one as well. And then I can just turn the piece of cardstock over and cut away the edges. And like I said, I can always cut away the excess cardstock if I've cut it larger than I need. Nothing worse than having to come back and recut something like I did on the first card. That was annoying. So just attach that to an A2 side fold card. I can add some liquid glue to pop up it's almost like a chipboard word now. It's 4 layers thick. So it's very solid. It'll go through the post well. Added the girl, and yes, I'm going to cut away the edges of these letters. And my scissors could do that perfectly. And I came in and stamped the rest of the sentiment. I should have done it before, but I didn't know I needed it till later. The joy of a Misty. And onto my next technique, we're going to be creating a multicolored sentiment. I've got a piece of my cheap scrappy white cardstock, added some double-sided adhesive, and then cut some strips of scrap paper. And then I can just lay it onto the cardstock. I am not being too particular about the widths of the stripes. In fact, I'm making sure that they aren't even because I didn't want to have to concentrate on cutting them all the same size. I did make sure to choose a die cut that had a fairly wide edge to it, so that is going to make these stripes really stand out. And then I die cut that through my Gemini machine because I know that's got a really strong pressure. If you've got a manual die cutting machine, you might need to use an extra shim or two. And we're going to be creating a scene, and I just love to add some critters to my cards. So these critters are going to be holding my die cut sentiment, and this one is in particular is perfect. This bear is perfect because his arms are die cut, so you can actually slip something in his hands for him to hold. If you don't have that, you can actually use a craft knife to cut that, or you can just pretend, like just set the word next to where his hand is on the actual card. So you can create a scene with so many different styles of images and critters. So take a look at your stash and see if you have anything that you can use. And initially I was going to add the rabbit holding the word hi, which he kind of is, but then I saw an opportunity, and of course the rabbit is putting the tittle into place with his nose. But check your stash. This is a really great way to use up scraps of cardstock, create striped backgrounds. But if you can't be bothered, don't worry, just use some design paper or add plain colored sentiment instead. Okay, so we're on to the next technique now, and dare I say, this is my favorite card of today. Not that we're allowed to have favorites, but it's a sentiment window. And I'm just using some basic circle dies here to create a life buoy. You'll see that in a moment. But I want to create a window in the front of the card so that the sentiment will show through. I would recommend using a heavyweight cardstock so that the card doesn't warp. I'm using a 110-pound Nina Solar White cardstock, and I'm also going to add a couple of waves of coloured cardstock to the front and the inside of the card. So I have lined them up to make sure that they're going to fit on the front of the card, but I leave it longer than it needs to be, so I can adhere it to the front and then just cut the excess away. That way it doesn't matter if I haven't cut it exactly to size, I know that it's going to fit. I've added a heat emboss sentiment on the inside of the card so that I can then come along and add my die cut sentiment. But first I want to come and create the life buoy. I did want to share this with you today. I know it's not much to do with sentiments, but I had such fun creating it. And the thing that I love the most about this technique is you're not limited to just circle dies or basic shapes. You can also use things like hearts or stars. Even an coordinating image die would work here, and then you could put the sentiment on top of the image. You've also got the opportunity that you can decorate the outside and the inside of the card to coordinate, like I've done here today. And the other thing that I love about this technique is that you can add dimension to the actual word dies themselves, because if I was closing the front of the card and I didn't have that gap there, I wouldn't be able to add dimension to the word die, and that would not make my heart happy. I love dimension. And this technique's perfect. Even if you don't have any word dies, you can actually stamp a word in the window. And this is my final technique, and the one that I've been wanting to share with you. If you have a die cut word with a shadow die, you can do this. Some are easier than others, and you'll see why in a minute. But start by die cutting the actual word itself. Make sure to keep all of the counters or the centers of the letters, and then come in with the shadow die and re-die cut the word. Seriously, this is so much fun. You can do this and then just use it as it is. That way you can see the image through the background of the word, as you know, where you put it on your card. Or you can do as I did, and I chose to add a second die cut shadow behind it, and I just chose to use some black today because I was feeling that it showed up better on the card design that I'd made. And if you kept the counters, see, this doesn't offend me just to have it without the center of the letters, but I decided to bring them in and add them as well. Sometimes I like to actually inlay the original die cut word, and that way I know exactly where the letters need to go. But this one I just guessed, and it worked out fine. And tweezers are your friend, I can tell you that now. I added this to a card, a monochromatic card made with some layered die cut flowers. One of the classic layered die cut flowers right from the beginning of time when they were created from old to new. In fact, I think this was the first layered die cut flower that I ever saw and fell in love with. And all together now, we have all of our techniques, the tone on tone, repeat patterned background, the focal point with the details added with the extra stamping, and the layered up die cut word because it's a fairly fine die cut, the striped sentiment, and the scene that we created with the critters and that little rabbit. I hope his nose isn't sore from holding that tittle. And my favourite, but don't tell anybody, the sentiment window and my life buoy made with some basic die cut shapes. Easy to do, promise. And my favourite technique today, which is the double die cut layered word. This is a game changer. Thanks so much for joining me. Let me know in the comments below which card is your favourite today, and click the like button if you enjoyed the video, and subscribe if you haven't already. I've got 2 more amazing videos for you right here. I'll see you there. Till next time, happy paper crafting. Bye.